Kính thưa quý khán thính giả, kính mời quý vị theo dõi phóng sự của truyền hình Việt Nam vùng Hoa Thịnh Đốn trong tuần này. Kính thưa quý vị, trong dịp về nghỉ phép, Đại sứ Hoa Kỳ tại Việt Nam, ông David Shear đã đến thăm bác sĩ Nguyễn Quốc Quân, Chủ tịch Tổ chức Quốc tế yểm trợ cao trào nhân bản tại tư gia trong vùng FallsChurch, Virginia. Nhân dịp này, vào lúc 6 giờ 30 chiều thứ Sáu, ngày 16 tháng 8 năm 2013, bác sĩ Nguyễn Quốc Quân đã tổ chức một buổi gặp gỡ dành cho quý thân hào nhân sĩ, đại diện tôn giáo, cộng đồng, hội đoàn và giới truyền thông Việt-Mỹ trong vùng thủ đô Hoa Thịnh Đốn, và cũng có những đại diện truyền thông đến từ California, với mục đích để mọi người có thể trực tiếp tiếp xúc, trò chuyện, đặt câu hỏi với đương kim Đại sứ Hoa Kỳ tại Việt Nam. Và trong dịp này, truyền hình Việt Nam vùng Hoa Thịnh Đốn cũng đã đến tham dự để gửi đến quý vị hình ảnh diễn tiến của buổi gặp gỡ này. Đây không phải là lần đầu tiên mà trong nhiều năm qua, bác sĩ Nguyễn Quốc Quân cũng đã nhiều lần tạo cơ hội để cho đồng hương có dịp tiếp xúc và trực tiếp nghe sự trình bày, trả lời những câu hỏi được đặt ra xoay quanh về tình trạng vi phạm nhân quyền và những vấn đề vi phạm khác tại quốc nội qua đại diện của Bộ Ngoại giao. Những sinh hoạt này cũng đã thực hiện trong thời gian tại chức của những vị đại sứ tiền nhiệm và ngay cả với ông phụ tá trợ lý Ngoại trưởng Hoa Kỳ là ông Daniel Bear đã diễn ra trước đây tại tư gia của bác sĩ Nguyễn Quốc Quân. Ông David Shear đã lần lượt khéo léo trả lời tất cả những câu hỏi về nhân quyền, về việc bãi bỏ lệnh cấm vận, vấn đề mậu dịch, việc buôn bán vũ khí, về tình trạng những nhà đối kháng, tù nhân lương tâm đang bị giam cầm, đặc biệt là các bạn trẻ, về chuyện buôn phụ nữ, vấn đề con nuôi, về vấn đề sinh viên Việt Nam được cho phép sang du học tại Hoa Kỳ, vân vân. Ông David Shear nói rằng mọi việc vẫn trong vòng trao đổi thương thuyết, phải cần thời gian chứ không thể một sớm một chiều, và ông cũng có đề cập đến chuyện Chủ tịch Nhà nước Cộng sản Việt Nam Trương Tấn Sang đến Hoa Kỳ trong tháng 7 vừa qua để diện kiến và trao đổi với Tổng thống Barack Obama. Ông David Shear hứa là khi trở về lại Việt Nam sau thời gian nghỉ phép, ông sẽ mang những vấn đề ông được nghe, được biết trong buổi gặp gỡ này để bàn luận với các giới chức có thẩm quyền trong chính quyền của Đảng Cộng sản Việt Nam. Thưa quý vị, buổi sinh hoạt này chấm dứt với buổi cơm tối thật thịnh soạn do bác sĩ và bà Nguyễn Quốc Quân khoản đãi.
I feel very fortunate and grateful for the having the occasion to work closely with Ambassador Shear to support for democracy and human rights, and also for the release of all political prisoners in Vietnam. I found that he's very fortunate and grateful to know and to have occasion to work closely with him. I respect him for his leadership, for his determination and his devotion for achieving these goals. And I also appreciate and thankful for his kind friendship. But more important though, Ambassador Shear recognizes the crucial role of the Vietnamese American community plays in the U.S.-Vietnam relationship. That's why he's here today, not only to share with us what has already transpired, but also to discuss with us what still lies ahead in bettering Vietnam. Ambassador Shear, thank you for joining us today, and all of us are eager to listen to your speech. So, without any further delay, I would like to ask you to join me in welcoming Ambassador Shear.
Thank you. You know, as diplomats, we're required to have a lot of contacts. If we're in Vietnam, we need a lot of Vietnamese contacts. And we work with these contacts to pursue American interests abroad. And I just want to let you know that one of my best Vietnamese contacts is right here in Northern Virginia. It's Dr. Quan. We rely on him very heavily for news of the Vietnamese community and for news of what's going on in Vietnam, actually. So this is a very important relationship. The Vietnamese-American community really is of fundamental importance to the U.S.-Vietnam relationship. You have come a long way. You have a very, very strong voice through your representatives in Congress, through the media, and through Vietnamese in Vietnam. And you are listened to by we in the government. You are listened to by the Vietnamese. You have a very strong voice, and you are very, very important to us. And believe me, we listen to you. And your views shape what we do. And we pay very close attention to what's going on back here. And I was here about a year and a half ago, shortly after I began my tour in Vietnam. And in May, I made a tour of Orange County, San Francisco, and San Jose, engaging with the Vietnamese American community there as well. So I want to continue to stay in close touch for the rest of my tour here, because again, your voice is very, very important to us. And thank you very much. And I just want to very briefly summarize where we are right now with Vietnam and where I think we're going. You've probably heard me say this before, but I want to say it again. We want a strong, prosperous, and independent Vietnam that respects human rights and the rule of law. And we pursue this goal via 4 avenues. One is we want to strengthen bilateral economic and trade ties, and we're doing that through the Trans-Pacific Partnership. And the Trans-Pacific Partnership does not just have economic significance for Vietnam and the United States, but it also has strategic significance for both countries, because once Vietnam is a member of the Trans-Pacific Partnership, they'll know that they have a reliable relationship with the strongest economy in the world, and they won't have to depend solely on other regional economies for their prosperity. They can achieve prosperity through stronger bilateral economic relations with the United States. So this is a strategic agreement as much as it is an economic agreement. A second avenue via which we pursue this goal is through stronger diplomatic coordination on such issues as the South China Sea. This is, of course, a critically important issue for the Vietnamese. It's a critically important issue for ASEAN and for the region. You've probably all heard what we've said, what our position is. We want this issue resolved peacefully through diplomacy. And we want it done in such a way that it preserves freedom of navigation in the South China Sea. And we work very closely with the Vietnamese on this issue, as well as issues relating particularly to the Mekong River, damming on the Mekong River, and the environmental quality of the Mekong River that's being affected by climate change. It's people in the South are quite alarmed by the possible environmental damage to the Mekong Delta. So we're consulting with the Vietnamese on this as well. A third avenue via which we pursue this goal is through strong people-to-people relations. And we focus particularly on the areas of education, health, and environment. There are over 15,000 Vietnamese students in the United States right now. I think that's the 7th largest. Vietnam is the 7th largest provider of foreign students in the United States. It's one of our best exports, and those students, sooner or later, as Vietnam's economy develops, are going to start going back. And they're going to take with them not only the education they received here, but they're going to take back their experiences they had here. They're going to take back their values. They're going to take back what they heard from you, the Vietnamese American community. And they're going to be, over time, they're going to be shaping the future of Vietnam very, very much. We work with the Vietnamese on health, particularly in fighting HIV/AIDS, but also in building the overall Vietnamese health infrastructure. We work with Vietnamese in the area of environment and climate change. But there's a fourth avenue via which we pursue this goal. And I'm not mentioning it last because it's the least important. I'm mentioning it last because it's related to every other of those avenues we pursue, and that's human rights. We pursue the improvement of human rights in Vietnam very, very vigorously and very, very energetically. And I want to mention Michael Arona here because Michael Arona worked for, how many years did you work in the embassy, Michael? 3 years? 4 years. Michael worked exclusively on human rights in the political section of my embassy for 4 years. We relied on him very heavily to do what we wanted to do on human rights, and that man is a hero. Stand up, Michael. Stand up. Thank you very much. And what I've told the Vietnamese since I got there was that TPP is extremely important. For example, TPP is extremely important to both sides, but we will not be able to generate sufficient political support in Washington or in America as a whole for the Trans-Pacific Partnership without demonstrable progress in human rights. And we've gone beyond this, and we've spoken to the Vietnamese in very specific ways about what they can do to improve human rights, including releasing more political prisoners, releasing all political prisoners, including improving the conditions of worship, including the improvements in freedom of religion. We have asked them to ratify the Convention Against Torture, and they committed to doing that in the joint statement released recently during President Sang's visit here to Washington. So we have engaged the Vietnamese in a variety of very practical, pragmatic, specific efforts they can do to improve human rights and improve rule of law in Vietnam. And we've seen some modest forward movement, We had American citizen activist Richard Nguyen released early in the year. We had Lê Công Dinh released early in the year. We've seen an uptick in the number of church registrations. The Vietnamese government's relationship with the Vatican is improving, and I would hope that the representative of the Vatican, now resident in Singapore, will soon be resident in Hanoi. So we've seen modest improvements, but we have lots of work to do with the Vietnamese, and I'm going to go back and I'm going to keep doing that work, and hopefully we'll see in time an overall improvement in the human rights situation in Vietnam. I'm not going to whitewash the situation there. I'm not going to tell you that it's going to be great next year, but this is like someone once said that politics is like drilling through a hard piece of wood, right? And it takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of patience, and you don't get a lot of progress in a short time. So we're working very hard, and we expect gradual progress over time, but it's going to take efforts from my embassy, it's going to take efforts from all of you to get things moving in the positive direction there. I just want to say one more thing about President Sang's recent visit to Washington. It was a very important visit. partly because we wanted the Vietnamese to make a strong public statement supporting the conclusion of Trans-Pacific Partnership negotiations by the end of this year. But we also wanted to make a very strong statement to the Vietnamese about human rights. President Sung met with President Obama in the Oval Office. They discussed human rights for a lengthy period during the meeting in two contexts. One is a general context in which they exchanged views on human rights. The other context was when the Vietnamese raised their interest in our lifting of the ban on the sale of lethal weapons to Vietnam. The President said, if you want us to do that, you're going to have to improve your human rights practices. He said that very firmly. Again, we're working on better U.S.-Vietnam relations. We're working on better human rights conditions in Vietnam. And what we want, in the end, is a strong, prosperous, and independent Vietnam that respects human rights and the rule of law.
First, would like to thank you very nicely.
In Washington, D.C., Maryland, and Virginia, and Chairman of the Vietnamese Senior Citizens in the Washington metropolitan area. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Jin Mo Nguyen.
Community in the Washington, D.C. area, we welcome you. Thank you for your time sharing with us your information and your work in Hanoi. It's not easy. And thank to you, the line of communication has been wide open between the embassy and the community. And over the years, and I hope there will be more years to come, to build a relationship between the two, just like we build a relationship with the Congress. And together we work toward Vietnam, a better place to live, a better place to work, and a better place to visit. We know this is your private time, your vacation time, and we wish you a very quality time with your family and your friends. And thank you for all your work you do. And on the same note, I want to thank Mrs. and Dr. Quân for your hard work for this meaningful gathering year after year. And we wish we have more of this in coming. And for the same note, I want to have a token report on human rights in Vietnam for the Ambassador and Dr. Quân. Thank you very much.
For bringing us all together today. And Ambassador, I want to thank you for your energy and your strength in helping us in the human rights work that you do. At Radio Free Asia, our goal is to provide a voice and the ability for the Vietnamese people to be able to connect and engage with each other and recognize their self-empowerment for civil society. And it's really important for us to be able to continue our operations, to have a strong ambassador in the embassy there in Hanoi, and we're very, very happy to have you there and look forward to working with you in the future. Thank you.
Thưa ngài đại sứ, tôi muốn biết bao giờ đất nước của chúng tôi được có nhân quyền. Tôi nghe ấn dấu sắp đến với đất nước chúng tôi, nhưng mà không biết Tổng thống Hoa Kỳ và Lưỡng viện Quốc hội Hoa Kỳ và ông đại sứ có sẵn sàng giúp đỡ cho đất nước chúng tôi được nhân quyền màu trắng hay không? Tôi cần anh chị đọc. Cảm ơn ông.
And thank you to Dr. Quan and his family for having me here as well. I know some of you, my connection to the Vietnamese community actually goes back to the mid-1970s when my family took in 2 Vietnamese refugees who had just fled the communist regime. And I was very happy at the time because I was a teenager and it was my job to cut our lawn. And my father hired these 2 Vietnamese to cut the lawn, so I didn't have to cut my lawn anymore when we took in these Vietnamese refugees. But
Đây, có lại. Cảm ơn anh.
Yes, I do. Exactly. You'll stay here. I will stay here for 2 years. For 2 years.
Nó cái liếc lúc children come stay with me, ambassador. My grandson. My grandson.
You want to cut the cake? Come on, let's cut some more cake. Put your hands up here. There we go. You get your hand up there too. We're all gonna do this. All right, you okay? Yo! All right. Thank you. Oh, one more. All right. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Vietnam every year, and they're building a new pilgrimage center there. So the situation is mixed, but there's a lot of work to do, and I try to help by visiting local areas and visiting churches and making sure that everybody knows that we take a very strong interest in freedom of religion. For example, I was in Dien Bien Phu in March, and I visited house churches in Dien Bien Phu, both Catholic and Protestant, and I'm happy to report that the congregations there are extremely enthusiastic. Very much. You may not be satisfied with this answer, but as a member of the executive branch, I can't comment on legislation pending before Congress.
That's called separation of power.
Negotiating the Trans-Pacific Partnership right now with our 12 partners. There are 12 members altogether in the Trans-Pacific Partnership, including the United States, Canada, Mexico, Vietnam, Japan, Singapore, Malaysia, and Australia, New Zealand, and several others. So the TPP is a big negotiation. I believe we are engaged in a negotiating round right now. We hope to finish the negotiation by the end of the year. It's about the agreement will be about that thick.
This question comes from Ms. Bat Mai Nguyễn, Vietnamese Public TV anchor and reporter. Dear Mr. Ambassador, in your speech you mentioned that you are working in 4 avenues and the progress has been modest. But all we are seeing is that the Vietnamese government are putting more bloggers and dissidents in jail. What else can you do?
Well, again, we are very concerned about the situation with regard to freedom of expression in Vietnam. We're very concerned about the trend in arresting bloggers. It's not a good trend. And I've certainly gone on record very clearly opposing this trend. And I've gone on the record publicly, I've gone on the record privately, and the Vietnamese know not only what we think about it, but they know what they need to do. And as we move forward in other areas of the relationship, it's our hope, it's our strong hope, that they'll move forward in this area too. And again, I'm not going to whitewash the situation in Vietnam, and I'm not going to tell you that it's going to improve overnight. This is a gradual process which takes a lot of persistence and a lot of patience.
You've been in Vietnam for nearly 2 years. What is the accomplishment that you are most proud of?
That I went to Bac Lieu province and had lunch with the party secretary and drank a lot and ate a lot of snake, and I made it through that lunch. That's one thing. But I think we've had some accomplishments my embassy has supported the Trans-Pacific Partnership agreement negotiations very, very strongly. The lead in that is the U.S. Trade Representative's office. We have worked with the Vietnamese diplomatically in the region to make sure that issues like the South China Sea remain on the ASEAN agenda, remain on the regional diplomatic agenda. And we have worked with the Vietnamese on human rights, including the release of Richard Nguyen and the release of Lê Công Dinh, and it's my hope that we'll have more releases in the future.
I'm from the Vietnam Human Rights Network, and you have done once in the past. Would you do it again by inviting the dissident to the embassy for occasion like at the TED or the 4th of July?
Let me break that question down into two parts. I've been asked many times, will I invite dissidents to my 4th of July reception? Will I visit dissidents in jail? And the answer to that question is, if I thought it would help, I'd do it. But there's a lot of other things we can do that I think would improve the condition, overall human rights conditions, and conditions of individual dissidents in Vietnam. So if I thought it would help, I'd do it. But I think there are other more effective things that we can do before we try that. The second part of the question is, would I meet with dissidents in the embassy? And I think the answer to that is, I've done it before. I expect that depending on the circumstances, I could do it again.